Close your eyes. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of a narrow dirt path. A gentle breeze stirs the branches of the cherry trees above you, scattering a few pale petals into the humid air. You feel the soft crunch of wooden sandals, geta, beneath your feet. You've stepped back in time to a city not yet called Tokyo. This is Edo, the capital of the Tokugawa shogunate, and today you will live a day in the life of one of its ordinary residents. But be warned, Edo is not what it seems from a distance. Though there is beauty, there is also grime. Though there is harmony, there is suffering. Though there is order, there is no comfort. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Awakening in the City of Wood and Paper. The sun rises early in Edo. Its first light filters through the thin, washy paper screens of your home. A narrow, creaking structure of dark wood and faint mildew. You sleep not in a bed, but on a tatami mat with a thin cotton blanket wrapped around your shoulders. If it's summer, the sweat is already pooling beneath your neck. If it's winter, you can see your own breath curl in the air. There is no glass, no insulation, only rice paper between you and the sounds of the street. You rise, you fold your bedding and stash it neatly away in a wooden box. Space is precious. Your room may be shared by others or partitioned with mere cloth from the rest of your family. Outside you hear a bamboo flute. Not music, but a signal. The night soil men are collecting human waste. They carry it away on poles and buckets, using it to fertilize fields outside the city. You breathe through your sleeve. No plumbing, no sewers, just the smell of rotting matter and the rattle of carts. Your day has begun. Morning meals and market streets. In the corner, your mother or sister prepares the morning meal. There is no stove, just a small hearth fueled by wood or charcoal. Boiled rice, pickled vegetables, maybe a bit of miso soup. If you're lucky, a dried sardine. There is no coffee, no toast, no fruit, unless it's in season. The food is eaten in silence. Talking at meals is not encouraged. The clink of chopsticks on bowls is the loudest sound you hear. Then, it's time to dress. Your robe, your kimono, is simple cotton. Its color faded, patched. Your obi, belt, is tied with practice, but always a little too tight. You step outside and are immediately surrounded by wood and humanity. Edo is a city of over 1 million people, but there are no wide boulevards, no open parks, just narrow alleys and endless buildings of wood, bamboo, and paper. The ground is dust in summer, mud in rain, ice in winter, and always, it smells of smoke, sweat, and fish. As you make your way to your place of work or trade, you pass stalls selling tofu, yams, shaved ice, dried kelp. You see a samurai walk by. You bow. He does not bow back. A day's labor without pause. Most likely, you are not a noble, not a samurai, not a merchant of wealth. You are a chonin, a common townsman, or perhaps a hainen, a non-person, living on the margins. You may be a lantern maker, a porter, a carpenter's apprentice, a tofu seller. Whatever your role, you work from sunup to sundown. No weekends, no vacations. Your fingers are cracked. Your back aches. There are no unions, no labor laws. Only the expectation that you will do as your father did, and your children will do after you. If you are a woman, your duties are no lighter. Fetching water, washing rice, tending children, serving in the house of a merchant, if you're fortunate, or selling your body for coin if you're not. Yet despite the hardship, Everything is done with care, with shibui, a quiet, understated beauty. Your lunch is simple, perhaps a rice ball with umeboshi, the pickled plum puckering your tongue, a drink of water from a communal ladle. Then, work continues. Fire, fear, and the fragile city. Edo is beautiful from a distance, but it is fragile, and it burns. Nearly every year, a great fire consumes a part of the city. The buildings are wood, the roofs are straw, and the people live packed together like matchsticks. Even now, you might smell smoke. Fire brigades, hikeshi, roam the streets, but they are not what you might imagine. They do not douse flames. They tear down houses, entire rows, to create fire breaks. Your home can be lost in hours, and no one will repay you. Earthquakes come without warning. Floods drown the low-lying districts, and always, the specter of disease hangs in the air. Cholera, smallpox, the fevers that never leave. There are no hospitals, only temples and incense. Nightfall, with candles and shadows. When dusk comes, the world dims fast. There is no electricity, only candles, lanterns, oil lamps. Shadows stretch long across your room. The wind whistles through the slats. You eat your final meal. Another bowl of rice, a scrap of dried fish. The streets grow quiet, save for the distant clack of sandals on stone. You might hear the call of the night watchman, a rhythmic tapping of wooden sticks to mark the hour. If you have a little coin, you might visit the bathhouse. Steam and silence, the scalding water biting your skin. Or you may simply wipe your face with a damp cloth and return to your mat. You do not dream of wealth. You dream of dry rice, of clear weather, of no fires. The candle gutters. Darkness returns, and you, tired and sore, curl beneath your blanket. The city exhales, and so do you. The rules that govern you. You may think your life is your own here in Edo, but in truth, everything you do is governed by 1,000 quiet rules. The Tokugawa shogunate watches from the shadows. Its presence isn't loud, but it's in the rice you eat, the clothes you wear, the street you walk. You cannot change class. You cannot move to a new neighborhood without permission. You cannot carry a sword unless you are born into the samurai caste. Even your hair, yes, your hair, is dictated by your place in the social order. And then there is the matter of the Sankin Kotai, the alternate attendance system. If you are connected to a daimyo, a regional lord, he is required to leave his family behind in Edo as a form of hostage insurance to keep him loyal to the shogun. Even your betters live under fear, quietly, discreetly. Rebellion is rare, and when it happens, it is brief, because the punishment is slow. There are no public revolutions, no roaring uprisings. There is simply a sense of weight, of stillness, that has lasted now for over 200 years. Seasons that shape your survival. In Edo, life is shaped not by clocks, but by the season. Spring means plum blossoms and ritual cleaning. Summer is unbearable, wet, heavy, crawling with mosquitoes. You sleep nearly naked on top of your bedding, fighting off heat stroke in your wooden house that traps warmth like a kiln. Autumn brings harvest, wind, and preparation for the cold. And winter is cruel. Your home has no chimney, only the smallest brazier. You huddle with your family beneath a single quilt, hands tucked inside your sleeves to keep your fingers from going numb. Sometimes the snow piles against the paper screens. You brush it away, but the chill stays in your bones. And if rice prices spike, as they often do, hunger follows. Not starvation, not famine, but hunger, like a shadow, always a step behind you. Faith, folklore, and the world unseen. To ease the burdens of daily life, you and your neighbors look beyond the seen world. You visit a Shinto shrine to offer coin and prayers for health. You pass the local Buddhist temple, its bronze bell calling out the hours in slow, sonorous tones. You may leave offerings for the kami, the spirits of river, wind, and flame, hoping they will protect your family from illness, from fire, from loss. Ghost stories, kaiden, are whispered at night. You know to avoid certain alleyways after dusk, to never whistle in the dark, to burn incense when shadows grow too long. Superstition and religion blend, not in fear, but in habit, a soft thread woven into the fabric of your day. The priest speaks not in sermons, but in rituals, and you trust not the gods to save you, only to notice you, just enough to leave you in peace, entertainment, and escape if you can afford it. For a brief moment, you may find joy. If your pockets have coin, you might visit the theater, watching kabuki actors paint tales of betrayal, honor, and the supernatural. Or perhaps a trip to the Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure quarter, a world of illusion, where courtesans are dressed like nobles and music flows like sake. But for most, entertainment is more humble, a storyteller at the corner, spinning a tale by lantern light, a traveling monk with riddles and chants, a neighborhood festival with clanging drums, paper lanterns, and roasted chestnuts. The joy here is not loud, it is quiet, stolen in slivers, like the moment a lotus opens at the edge of a muddy pond, the end of a very long day. You return home by candlelight. Your legs are sore, your stomach still half empty. You wash your hands, comb the lice from your hair, and say little. The walls are thin. You can hear your neighbor cough in his sleep. You prepare your bedding again, careful not to wake the children. You lie down. You do not think of the future. There is no great ambition, only survival. The future is for nobles, for merchants, for ghosts. Your world is narrow, quiet, bound, and yet, somewhere in the dark, the night watchman taps his sticks. The sound, soft and steady, marks the hour, and you, without knowing why, begin to breathe more slowly. The day is done. You have lived exactly one day in Edo, and tomorrow you will do it again, if you're lucky. Chapter 2. The Fall of Saigo Takamori, the last samurai who walked away. This segment continues in the quiet, meditative voice of the first. We are not telling a heroic action story. We are unfolding a life in gentle, deliberate layers, like revealing the grain of old wood with careful strokes. This is a story of loyalty, of isolation, of a man whose silence at the end said more than his battles. A boy in the shadow of volcanoes. Before he was legend, he was just Saigo Kichibe, a boy born in 1828 in the warm, misty air of Kagoshima, a city nestled between the mountains and the smoking volcano of Sakurajima. The scent of sulfur drifted through the rice fields. Rain came often, sudden and soft, and little Saigo, barefoot, quiet, watched the world around him in long silences. His family was low-ranking samurai, not noble, not rich, but respected. They served the Shimazu clan, a powerful house known for fierce loyalty and independence from the shogunate. And Saigo, from a young age, was taught that duty came before comfort. He studied the Confucian classics at dawn, served rice to his elders with bowed head, and learned that strength meant calmness. He was not brilliant in school, not graceful with a sword, but even as a boy, he was large, unmoving, solid as stone. They called him Nanshu, Southern Calm, a fitting name, because he would weather many storms, rise through shadows. In his early 20s, Saigo found himself in the heart of Edo, a clerk in the court of Shimazu Nariakira, Lord of Satsuma. The world was shifting. The West was knocking at Japan's doors, and Nariakira was one of the few lords who believed Japan must open before it was torn open. He needed men who were not loud, but loyal, not ambitious, but deeply faithful. He saw this in Saigo. Soon, the quiet clerk was entrusted with secret letters, negotiations, and quiet intelligence. But the political tides in Edo were cruel. Nariakira died suddenly in 1858. His enemies in Satsuma purged the court. Saigo, now dangerous by association, was sent into exile. Not once, but twice. Once to the lonely island of Amami Oshima, where he fell in love with a local woman and married her quietly, only to be told to leave her behind when recalled to Satsuma. Then again to Okinoarabu, a wind-blown island where he lived in near starvation, surviving on roots, fish, and prayer. Yet he did not break. He read Buddhist texts, he wrote poetry, he bathed in cold seawater, and watched the sky with stillness. The world forgot him, but he did not forget the world. A return and a war. It was 1864 when Saigo was quietly recalled from exile. Japan was unraveling. The Tokugawa shogunate, ancient and crumbling, was failing to resist Western encroachment. The emperor's court, long powerless, was stirring. Saigo believed in order, in loyalty, but he believed in a loyalty deeper than politics. He would serve the emperor, not for gain, but for the soul of Japan. When civil war broke, the Boshin War, Saigo was placed in command of the imperial forces. It was not a war of great battles, but of grim marches, of samurai in woolen coats facing rifles and cannons. At Toba Fushimi, his strategy turned the tide. At Ueno, he crushed the resistance of the last Tokugawa loyalists. By 1869, the shogunate was gone, the emperor was restored, and Saigo Takamori, once exiled to the edge of the world, was now at the center of it. But something was wrong. The new Meiji government, filled with men Saigo had helped rise, was transforming too fast. Western clothes, Western schools, Western values. The old world was vanishing, and Saigo stood still. The quiet end. By 1873, Saigo had quietly retired from government. He returned to Kagoshima, walking the familiar paths of his youth. He opened a school, not to teach war, but virtue. He taught farming, classics, discipline, but rumors swirled that he was raising an army, that he was planning rebellion. None were true, not at first. But in 1877, when the government attempted to seize weapons from Satsuma, his people rose, and Saigo, once again, felt the pull of loyalty. He did not want war, but he would not abandon his people. Thus began the Satsuma Rebellion. His troops, farmers and former samurai, faced a modern army. They had no chance. One by one, the old warriors fell. And in the valley of Shiroyama, Saigo stood for the last time. At dawn, he was wounded. He asked to be left alone, and then quietly, he died. By his own hand, they say, or with the help of a friend. No one knows. But the myth began that morning. of the Last Samurai. Epilogue. A spirit that stays. Saigo Takamori was declared a traitor, then pardoned after death. His face now appears on statues, on coins, on dreams. But his story is not of glory. It is one of stillness, of choosing silence when words would not do, of standing when others bowed, of walking away instead of shouting. And in the long dark of a Kagoshima night, if you listen past the cicadas, past the wind that carries the scent of the volcano's ash, you may hear the echo of heavy footsteps, soft, measured, not chasing war, only peace. Chapter 3. The Lost Language of the Ainu. Secrets carved in ice. In the land of mist and pines, long before the rise of samurai, long before the emperor's voice echoed across the islands, there were others. In the frozen forests of Hokkaido, along the coasts of Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands, a people lived simply and separately. They called themselves Ainu, a word meaning simply human. Their homes were small and warm, made of birch bark and reeds. Smoke curled from low fires. Snow rested like a second roof. In the stillness, they listened to rivers, to wolves, to wind. They believed the world was full of spirits, that every tree, every bear, every tool held a kamui, a soul. Even words, even breath, were sacred. They spoke a language that seemed to move like water, soft consonants, long vowels, almost sung. And though that language is nearly gone, you can still feel its rhythm in the snow. The language that drifted away, Ainu, is unlike Japanese. It is a language isolated, with no known relatives. Its grammar is poetic, its sounds smooth and breathy, with meanings deeply tied to the natural world. A bear is not just a bear, it is kamui, sacred. To speak of it is to invoke it. To speak wrongly is to offend it. Names were whispered only in ritual. Speeches began with long, circular praises, giving thanks to the gods, to the tools, to the ancestors. It was a language spoken beside fire, in ceremonies where women sang with throat-deep rhythm, and men offered prayers with the smoke of sacred tobacco. There was no writing, only memory, stories passed from mouth to ear, braided into lullabies and tattooed on skin. But with time, fewer voices remained. As Japan modernized, Ainu was declared illegal in schools. Children were beaten for speaking it. Families forgot. Silence spread. Today, fewer than 10 native speakers remain. But still, the words wait. In woven cloth, in carved wooden blades, in lullabies, sung softly to sleeping children, the rituals of smoke and bear. The Iomante ceremony was one of the most sacred Ainu rites. It involved the raising of a bear cub, fed, cared for, honored, as a living guest of the village. When the time came, the bear was released from this world, so its spirit could return to the gods. There was no cruelty in this, only reverence. They believed that bears were gods, wearing animal shapes, and to kill one wrongly was a sin. To kill one properly was a prayer. Men chanted, women wept, smoke curled up toward the winter sky, carrying the bear's spirit back into the mountains. They also carved wooden prayer sticks, inao, each one whittled with long spiral shavings that looked like pine fronds frozen in time. These were not decorations. Each curl was a whisper, each stick a conversation with the divine. Today, the Ainu are a people remembered, more in myth than memory. They live still, in Hokkaido towns, in the quiet north, but their numbers are small. Many bear no visible signs of their ancestry. Some are rediscovering it, like digging out a buried pot from snow. Japan officially recognized them as an indigenous people only in 2019. But recognition does not revive a language, nor a ceremony, nor a way of seeing the world where everything is spirit. Still, a revival has begun in small language schools, in tattoo designs etched into fabric, in lullabies recreated from old recordings, and in stories softly told. They say that when you sleep in the mountains, the wind may carry you an old Ainu word, or the sound of a flute made of bone, or a name that has not been spoken in generations. And if you hear it, do not fear, just listen, for that word may be your ancestor whispering to you through ice. Chapter 4. Inside the Floating World. What it was really like to be a courtesan in Edo, Japan, beyond the red lanterns, in the heart of old Edo, modern-day Tokyo, nestled within a labyrinth of bridges and canals, existed a district known as Yoshiwara. By day, the gates were closed, the walls were high, cherry blossoms framed the lanes like a dream. By night, a different world unfurled, not of chaos, but of illusion, of artistry, of silence dressed in silk. This was the floating world, ukiyo, a space removed from the pressures of society, a theater of refined pleasure. Yoshiwara wasn't just a red light district. It was a curated performance of elegance and fantasy. Its streets echoed with laughter, music, and the whisper of trailing silk. But behind each painted screen was a story far quieter than the world ever saw. At the center of this delicate world stood the oiran, elite courtesans, women of immense beauty and intense discipline. They were accomplished poets, dancers, calligraphers, conversationalists, style icons, and in some cases, political influencers. They could quote ancient texts. They could break hearts with a single look. But their world was not light. It was heavy with expectation, ritual, and quiet restraint. The oiran were different from the geisha. Where geishas specialized in entertainment and music, oiran were the stars of an older tradition. They were known for their towering hairstyles, impossibly intricate kimono, and the parade-like walk known as the oiran dochu. Yet their grandeur was accompanied by captivity. Their movement was limited, their choices carefully controlled, their smiles choreographed. Yoshiwara's architecture mimicked this duality. Narrow alleys opened into lavish interiors. Brothels were structured like palaces. Paper lanterns glowed gently above stone steps. Outside, a man might fall in love. Inside, a woman might be silently enduring her 14th hour on her feet. Oiran lived within the floating world, but they were not free to float. Every glance, word, and gesture was learned. A lifetime of training to embody grace. And through all of it, the floating world whispered its lesson. All things are temporary. Beauty, youth, status, and joy. It was a world of performance, fading at dawn. Painted childhood, the story of an oiran, didn't begin with luxury. It began in silence. Many girls who became courtesans were sold by impoverished families. At the age of 6 or 7, they arrived in Yoshiwara with small bundles and big eyes. Some had never seen a city. Others had just lost their parents. These girls began as kamuro, child attendants. Their duties were humble. They fetched water. They prepared brushes. They arranged cushions and watched quietly as their older sisters applied makeup or practiced music. Discipline began immediately. Slouching was corrected. Speaking out of turn was discouraged. Even laughter had a time and place. They slept in shared rooms, under thin futons. Winters were cold. Summers, sticky and restless. Each morning, they woke before the sun. By age 10, many Kamuro could perform a tea ceremony with elegance. They memorized poetry. They learned the rules of etiquette. When to bow, how deeply, how to hold a fan in each season. Their days were divided into lessons in labor. One moment, polishing floors. The next, reciting classical Chinese verse. By their early teens, the most skilled became Shinzo, apprentices. Here, the transformation began in earnest. Their hair was styled elaborately. Their clothing became more decorative. They shadowed senior courtesans, watching every interaction. Emotionally, they were still children, but emotionally, they were required to be adults. The line blurred. There were no schoolyard games, no true days off, but there were small joys. A shared sweet, a snowflake caught on a finger, a glance of approval from a mentor. They watched the Oiran in awe. But behind the admiration was a quiet knowing. This path, once begun, could not be left easily. The world outside Yoshiwara grew distant. Some girls didn't remember their real names. The ritual of a night. Evenings in Yoshiwara began with silence. A senior courtesan sat still for hours while attendants worked on her elaborate coiffure. Her hair might include combs, sticks, and seasonal ornaments, each placed with meaning. Makeup followed. A thick white foundation erased the face's natural color. Eyebrows were reshaped, lips painted small and red, like cherry petals. Her kimono could weigh over 20 pounds. Layers folded precisely. The obi, a wide sash, was tied in the front, not the back, signaling her status as a courtesan. As the lanterns were lit, she would begin the Oiran Dochu, the ceremonial walk through Yoshiwara. She didn't walk quickly. Her tall, heavy footwear forced her into a slow, swaying motion. Onlookers gathered. Children whispered. Clients waited, flanked by Kamuro and sometimes musicians. The Oiran became a living painting. Inside the brothel, the evening's work began. But it was not crude. It was refined. Patrons might request poetry, music, or even philosophical discussion. Tea was served. Fans fluttered. Conversation unfolded slowly. The Oiran was both performer and gatekeeper. Most clients never touched her. Those who did had to pay dearly. But even then, the encounter followed rules. No drunkenness, no disrespect. Each night blurred into the next. Perfumed hours behind screens. The price of silk dreams. A courtesan's life was bound by contracts. Her debts paid her training, her clothes, her food. Leaving meant repaying those costs. Often impossible. Some Oiran dreamed of freedom, of love, of life beyond the walls. Occasionally, a wealthy patron would buy out her contract. She might become a wife or concubine. But most courtesans aged out quietly. Their beauty faded. Their patrons left. Their names were forgotten. Some stayed in Yoshiwara as teachers. Others disappeared. There was no pension, no security, and yet their legacy endured. They shaped fashion. They inspired art. They left behind music, poems, and legends. Today, modern reenactments of the Oiran Dochu celebrate their beauty. Museums display their combs, their scrolls, but the truth of their lives, the long nights, the silence, the exhaustion, remains in shadows. The floating world is gone, but it still floats in memory. Tonight, we walked behind the red curtains, past the music, past the makeup, into the quiet breath of history. Let your dreams drift gently. Let the silk fall around you. And remember, even in lives lived behind walls, there was beauty, there was strength, there was story. Sleep well.